Back here at Elmwood Cemetery, a very old cemetery in Coffeyville, Kansas, and I found another area that there's a section of more Civil War graves, and I think we're going to have a look at those. I find it very interesting that they're buried in groups, whether it be Arkansas or Indiana infantry or whatever, but there's some sort of a story why they're all together buried usually. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll get into that story and have a look at those graves. Back at Elmwood Cemetery, Coffeyville, Kansas, also the burial spot of the Dalton gang and their lawman brother Frank Dalton. I'll show them too right quick. But I found another section of Civil War graves, and they're pretty much buried and bunched together. It's kind of a small area, but it's worth looking at. So we'll have a look at that. Again, this is Elmwood Cemetery in Coffeyville, Kansas, southeast Kansas. You should look it up. There are some famous graves here. The Dalton gang, of course. There are scattered Civil War graves here, but then you find the ones that are bunched together, buried together. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit. Civil War, GAR, Grand Army of the Republic, 61 to 65. Some of these sold, they're just about to fall down. Well more than 100 years. Pretty good shape. It still even has the pointy cap on it. Died in 1888. Wow. Frank Pellet. That's something. Very good condition. So, we've made it to these graves, these Civil War graves. There's their marker. A lot of them you can't make them out, but some of these are in really bad condition. This headstone's been replaced, of course, by somebody. one is a Mr. Horton, Hylon R. Horton, Ohio Infantry. Born 1830 and died in 1894. Deal with some of these, you see them all bunched together, Ohio Infantry and Illinois and such. I just don't know how they really come from there to here, but could be after the Civil War they came here to farm in Kansas and met women and, you know, had wives and kids and made it worth it, had a new life after the Civil War. And that's what I'm thinking. So when each one of these men would die from those units, Illinois or whatever, or Ohio Infantry, they would put them all together. I would say some of these men probably served in the same units during the Civil War, which I find it interesting. You can't really read them because they're not in good condition, but they're here. I think more needs to be done for these graves, of course. Anything Civil War grave is getting to be very old these days. I think something on a government level needs to be done to help restore them. See, that's what it looks like. It's just they're just kind of a group of them together. Makes me wonder if a lot of these men didn't serve together and know each other. Very possible. I could only make out that one really well. So we'll go back to him and I'll have a look at it again here. It says his name was Hylon R. Horton, Company D, 103rd Ohio Infantry, 1830 to 1891. You can only imagine what they seen, what these men seen for real, not just like it was on TV. I'm sure the real thing was much worse. But I want to take a few minutes to show that. Show these graves. Somebody's left a quarter here for somebody on their grave. For Joseph. I can make out his name's Joseph. Might be bad luck to take that quarter after what that man has went through. I think we'll now go over to the graves of the Daltons and their lawman brother Frank and have a look at that. So stay tuned. I really like these old wrought iron gates at graves. Well over 100 years, you know, 1800s. By the way, this cemetery, Elmwood Cemetery, is very old, dating back to the mid 1800s and before. It's kind of creepy even in the day, people, let alone the night. So I don't like to come here at night. Don't think it's very safe. I don't think it's safe to do that in any graveyard, in my personal opinion. All right. The grave of Frank Dalton. Somebody's put some flowers down here. Frank Dalton was their brother, the Dalton gang's brother, and a lawman. Unlike their outlaw brothers. He died November 27th, 1888. He was only aged 28 years. So in those days, you could be on the side of the law or an outlaw, or be an outlaw and then become a lawman again. It was just kind of a crazy situation. You can find out more about Frank Dalton online. It's very interesting. He died in a scuffle in Fort Smith, Arkansas, trying to apprehend some outlaws down there. And it cost him his life. And he died a young man. Very young. Really, they all did. All the Daltons. Trying to take two banks at once was a little much. I think that's where the Dalton gang messed up. It just wasn't their day. If you come here to the Dalton gang's grave, this is what you're going to see. It's a nice sign that the city of Coffeyville, Kansas put out. And this is what the outcome of their double bank robbery was. It just wasn't worth it. And there's a couple more pictures online that are even more gruesome than that. They're just piled up in the jail, in the floor, which was, in my opinion, a little inhumane, even for a bank robber. That would have been the alleyway uptown Coffeyville that they tied their horses off, and the old jail's down there still and all. If you're ever in the area of Coffeyville, Kansas, definitely come and have a look at it. We'll just have a look at their grave now. I've shown it before, but I always like coming here. They put some nice things out for them. Memorial Day recently, you know. So that's the grave of Bob Dalton, Grat Dalton, and Bill Power, October 5th, 1892. That post, that metal post, supposedly is the post they tied their horses off in the alley right before the bank robbery. I don't know if it's real or a reproduction, but I think it is real. It's very old. For a long time, that was just the marker for their grave, until the brother that survived put a headstone down for him long ago. One of them did survive, served about 15 years in a Kansas penitentiary for his role in it, but he lived, and he was shot several times. I don't know how he lived. The grave of the Dalton gang. So I hope you enjoyed this. I always enjoy coming here. And again, thank you for watching.